All right, it is 6:30 and we will call the meeting to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Heller,
Here.
Counselor Eber,
Here.
Counselor Holen,
Here.
Counselor McGuire,
Present.
Counselor Robinson,
Here.
Counselor Fisher is absent.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have audience participation. Seeing no one signed up, we'll move on to reports from members of city boards and commissions. Also seeing none. We'll move to the consent agenda, but I actually would like to make a change to the minutes. So there's no consent agenda. On page 7, in the third paragraph down that starts, Assistant City Attorney Fitch clarified that the purpose of land dedication is not to discourage subdivisions. And then the rest of the sentence, I don't think quite captures what they said, but to ensure subdivisions allowed under the code are tied to the impact of development. And I think what we more mean is that the dedication required is tied to the impact of development, not the subdivision. Okay, so change the minutes to say, but to ensure that the dedication required under the code is tied to the impact of development. That was my only correction.
Any other changes? I move approval of consent agenda item 6A as amended.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Jumping all the way down to new business, Resolution 23, Series 2026, accepting a donation from the Highline Canal Conservancy for the replacement of the Quincy Farm pedestrian bridge and approving a funding agreement with the Highline Canal Conservancy regarding the Quincy Farm pedestrian bridge. Director Goldie.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'd like to point out Josh Phillips is here with the Highline Conservancy. We just saw him at our pond, and he has shown up here, and we are very grateful for the Conservancy and their partnership in all things Highline. Why can't I figure this out? There we go. So with the change in ownership, we've had to make some changes on the move, and the Conservancy has been really good about trying to work with entities because we've slowed down on the irrigation and all the new trees and other improvements to the recreation and trail side because of the changeover from the ownership Denver Water to Arapahoe County. So as the county works through with all the entities, the agreements for both the recreational and stormwater, we had a project lined up where we were going to put in our irrigation, get that all done, and the Conservancy was going to put in all the trees. Since that has been slowed down a little, we are picking that back up here real soon. We've just about got our design on the irrigation, but since that slowed down, the Conservancy came to us and said, hey, we'd love to switch these funds and fund part of the footbridge. And so with that, we worked with them and said, yes, we can do that. So the project, like I said, was not originally earmarked for this, but we decided it would be a great partnership opportunity. At the Conservancy came to us with that idea. So the Conservancy's pledged to cover 50% of the project up to $65,000. Because of the substantial cost savings we found with our own staff doing a lot of the work, the actual project is going to come in almost $40,000 under budget. So the Conservancy's half will only be, I say only, it's a great great funding, will be 45,000, right in that ballpark once we get all the final bills in, not 65,000. With that, I have a recommended motion. I can answer any questions.
And I want to add, I think it's important for council to know that we have a great working relationship with the Conservancy. I really enjoy working with Josh. I always, it's clearly, they're committed to this kind of project. I mean, not only does Josh come, but he brings his whole team. Shows a real commitment. That's right. But no, honestly, the Conservancy is a real force that's helping keeping the canal moving with the big picture idea still in mind. So I just want to thank the Conservancy for their efforts.
Yes, this is the testing team that you brought with you to make sure that everything is KID approved. Yes, Councilor Heller.
Just one question of clarification, and sorry if I got it
That's
jumbled
okay.
up. So the dollars were reallocated from trees and irrigation to the bridge?
Yes,
And
yes.
so where does the bridge, or where does the irrigation and tree funding come from? Is that a separate?
It will come in the future. It's just that these funds had some earmarked timelines that had to be spent. So the Conservancy is trying to meet those, so they don't go away.
Okay,
So
so we won't lose anything.
we
from
won't lose
irrigation and
anything
trees,
for-
was my
no.
question. Okay, great, thank you.
Yes.
And I just wanted to clarify, the project capital P is defined as the replacement of the bridge as opposed to the bridge itself.
Correct.
Right, because the agreement says that we have to get approval to make any changes to the project. So obviously, after the bridge, down the road, 2-3 years, the project has been completed. and now
Correct.
the bridge is just not.
Yes,
Good. Okay, great.
there's no strings
Thank you.
attached on that.
That's great. And thank you, Josh, to the Conservancy. Terrific. Thanks.
All right. I had the opportunity to walk across the bridge just now as I was out there. It looks amazing. Kudos to staff. Thanks to the Conservancy for your support in doing that. It's just really so exciting to see things moving forward at the farm.
I move to approve Resolution 23, Series 2026, and the funding agreement with Highline Canal Conservancy, accepting the gracious donation of up to $65,000 to fund the purchase and installation of a new footbridge at Quincy Farm and the Highline Canal.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. We'll move on to Resolution 24, Series 2026, adopting an updated emergency operations plan. Director Goldie.
Good evening again. This one's not quite as fun as the funding and partnership with the Conservancy. So every few years, the city goes through its emergency operation plan and updates that. And so for those of you that might not know, I wanted to start with what is an EOP, or Emergency Operating Plan. It's really a framework that the city puts together and how we organize city departments, our responders, our elected officials, what everybody in the organization does during emergencies, whatever those may be. Again, an EOP is an operations plan. It's general guidelines. This isn't, here's what we're going to do in every situation down to the brass tacks. This is a broad plan that says, here's how we're organized. Here's how we are going to attack these. Here's who does what in each emergency. So it's not intended to be that procedural document. It's a framework that outlines everybody's roles. So because everyone that works together, from the feds to the state, to the cities, to the counties, everybody has to do their EOP plans in a specific way to make sure those all mesh. So our emergency operation plan was prepared under the Comprehensive Emergency Management Concept, which was developed by FEMA. So it uses the NIMS system. It has the National Response Framework built into it, the Colorado Emergency Operation Plan, and it meshes with the Arapahoe County EOP, which we will be bringing to council for approval also. That's part of what we have to officially adopt to be able to work with the county under the EOP. And these, required by law to bring the EOP to the elected board, but it helps ensure a seamless integration between all government agencies. And by adopting that, with the governing body, FEMA and other preparedness programs formally view that adoption as evidence of support. So if we ever have to go for federal or state funding for an emergency, we have that coverage. We have officially adopted this plan, and we're officially a part of the whole process and brought everything together as we're supposed to. So this EOP meets requirements for local emergency planning established under the State of Colorado Disaster Act, and it meets the requirements of state and federal guidelines for local emergency management programs. So we've updated this. We took it to each and every department, and it was good timing. It was for Public Works doing our accreditation. We had to update this as one of our requirements. The police, it was great timing for them. They're going through their accreditation. Some of the wording had to be changed a little bit, not changed in substance, but changed to meet the requirements of their accreditation. So this was good timing. And I can answer any questions you may have at this time.
Any questions for staff? Yes, Counselor Heller.
I'd actually like to take the answer maybe offline, but I'd just like to understand a little bit more about governance, succession. Obviously, it's in here. I understand the order of it, but what happens to quorums? You know, if we're talking, you know, bad disasters where people are not available, we'll just leave it like that. So is that something you can run me through? Maybe others want to, but I'd like to hear just a little bit about how that operates.
Yeah, we can sit down. Well, probably offline if not everybody wants to do it. We can set up a time and go through how some of that works and what the contingency are for things like that when if someone's not here or.
Yeah, or only 3 are available.
Yep.
There's no quorum, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Yes, Counselor Holman.
And, you know, in there that you talked about sort of the natural hazards, and then you talked about human-caused or technological hazards, mass casualty incidents, which I presume would probably, because I kind of, in my own mind, thought terrorism, but that would be included within mass casualty incidents?
Yes. So that's just a generic header. That could be multiple different things.
Right, okay. Terrific, thank you.
Oh, yes, Counselor McGuire.
One question, and then I think a couple of small typos. But when I was reading through, and I'm looking at organization and assignment of responsibilities, which is page 5 of the plan, it said that, you know, mayor and city council approve authorization of expenditures, great. It didn't really say who's responsible for keeping the mayor and the city council informed, who's responsible for communicating with the mayor and the city council. And there's sometimes when it looks like the police department is in charge of making decisions, or sometimes city managers, sometimes public works. But I didn't see who was supposed to be the point person for the city council. And is that not something that you usually have?
The city manager is always going to be the point person for the city council. And then you'll see the line of succession in there. If he's not available, then it's myself, and then it's the police chief. And so, but it doesn't leave our normal, because it's an emergency, your contact will still be the city manager if he's available. And he will be in contact with who's ever in charge of that emergency at the time.
Got it. And then I think it was under the storm, there was a discussion about which streets would be taken care of. And I should have marked it, but I didn't. And in any event, it talked about Layton between Quincy and Bellevue. And Layton is parallel to Quincy and Bellevue.
That was.
Here, it's on page 20.
We'll fix it. That is
Yeah,
supposed to be from Clarkson to Franklin.
that's what I figured it was. Okay, that's all I had.
Thank you.
And Counselor Robinson.
Yes, so I think this is excellent. I really enjoyed reviewing it. My question is around training and how you communicate the plan to your team so that it were something to happen to each of you, that the plan is able to be put into action. They don't have to look it up and read it in the middle of a crisis. So how do you train or make aware the procedures and so on to your staff? And it's for the police chief as well.
Yeah. Well, I'll answer first for my staff. We are required to do tabletop trainings each year or each few years. So the last one we did a snow emergency where we did a tabletop with the entire Public Works, and then we go over this EOP and show it to them. We actually have a lot of our staff that have the NIMS training and the FEMA training, so they are very familiar with the operations and the lines of succession and how those mesh with state and federal requirements. And then we also will this year, because it's our accreditation year, have a tabletop just on the EOP, and then we'll pick one emergency to do a tabletop training on.
Yeah, my response would be very similar. We, obviously, the mass casualty event, we train on that yearly. And then all of our supervisory staff from the rank of sergeant and above are trained in ICS, which is the Incident Command Structure, and the NIMS, the National Incident Management System, as it relates to tabletop. So we do that on every even year. We are due for that this fall. So we train on the actual coordinated response every other year, and every year we do a mass casualty event, and then we rope fire into that system as we know that if we're involved, they're involved, and vice versa.
And we, when possible, I think there's a mass casualty one in Inglewood this week. When possible, we try to bring Public Works in, even just to be observers for those, because we are all involved as first responders. So it's always nice to just see, here's what police and fire and EMS is doing, because, you know, we're sometimes trying to get them to the scene or away from the scene or whatever it is. So it's nice to have that interaction so we all speak the same language when we really have to.
Yeah, great. Oh, yeah, Counselor Eber.
In terms of communications and stuff, you talk about it on page 11 and stuff. I guess the question is are we now in a situation where all of the responders for something like this are on or know of the same radio frequencies, and so that communication doesn't lapse because of incompatible systems, both police as well as just Public Works? Is that a given in today's world?
Yeah, really post 9/11, that changed the framework for interoperability communication. So we are connected to every agency along the Front Range and in most in Colorado through mutual aid channels. So obviously we're dispatched by the county, so everybody in the county runs off the same primary channel, but then the interoperability allows us to connect with agencies all over the state on shared mutual aid channels.
Okay. And then in the context of multiple agency responses or something like that, how do we work out, police, fire, and Public Works all show up, but they get assistance from Metro, and each one has their own command structure? How do we coordinate all of those responders so that things are effective and efficient, so that everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing when they all show up? Is it because it's in Cherry Hills leads, or is that what happens?
Yeah, primarily from the law enforcement perspective, I wouldn't say the first few minutes are overly organized. You have agencies coming from all over the area. I've been present on many of those multi-agency responses, the Aurora Theater shooting, the STEM shooting, and it's chaos for the first few minutes until that ICS, that Incident Command Structure, is established. And in our case, if something were to happen here, ultimately that falls on my responsibility or my designee to make those decisions, those operational decisions and tactical decisions, if that were the case. And then generally what happens is once we establish a command post, the highest ranking figure from each of those responding agencies would be part of my team and by my side.
Okay. And then on the Public Works side, for instance, if it was a flood, so much of what happens with water down at this part of the village is affected by some of what's going on up in Denver. I mean, is there a coordination then with Denver, or how does
Yes,
that work?
there'll always be a coordination. More than likely, even with the flood, we would be in charge of the physical flood. We would still have the police take over that incident command and be the coordinator, just to make sure that what we're doing is not endangering the other emergency responders. So again, we have it all down to one central, but we would be the lead agency on, if Denver came in and said, hey, we're here to help, and then that physical part of here's what each crew is going to do for the cleanup, or please go block these roads. But again, because of the systems are all the same, we would ask the police to take over that central command as that happens.
Let's use an example that says something like, we would like Denver to divert water so that it doesn't come into Greenwood Gulch in the way that, I know it's currently designed and everything like that. But in an emergency situation, if we could ask them, and, who wins in a, Denver doesn't want to, but we want them to do something that would mitigate the impact in Cherry Hills. I mean, is that just Cherry Hills takes care of itself and Denver will take care of itself and whatever the impacts are?
Well, we would hope, and the chief can probably speak to it better than I can. I haven't been involved in any big multiple jurisdictional things in a long time, so it's all about coordination. It's all about, coming together. They may have a reason why they can't divert the water, and we need to listen to those reasons. We can't just say, hey, divert it because it helps us. They may say, we can't divert it because it floods this neighborhood. So it's all, it's all situational, and we come together to work together. There's, there may be disagreements, but that's all part of the system and why it's set up the way it is.
So when you do your tabletops, do they include multiple jurisdictions often, or is it more Cherry Hills Village?
For our public works ones, we try to find different jurisdictions. It's a little harder. Public Works isn't quite as organized as the law enforcement and the fire side. But when we can, we have, but mostly ours right now are just our crew. But again, we try to participate when police and fire are out doing their tabletops.
I'd like to just emphasize, and Chief, you can talk much more eloquently about this than I can, but the FEMA certifications, and that's not the only one I know, those are really the backbone of this entire system, simply because they standardize these protocols for everyone. So if we got called for a mutual aid circumstance in another jurisdiction, our folks are going to be versed in their processes and their protocols through our sergeants and up being certified through these standardized FEMA processes. So the benefit of that is that we're not figuring it out as we go every time, right? It's been standardized. I don't know if you want to add anything else to that, but I think that's the underlying engine that keeps it all moving.
Yeah, and those certifications are universal across the country. So whether it's us or Denver or Inglewood Police Department, our staffs are trained the same. There is a hierarchy to it. So there's line level training, the ICS 100 and 200, all the way up through 800, which is for command level decision makers. And all of the agencies, because of that accreditation requirement, we all have that level of training. So what that brings is a universal communication, shared language in the midst of chaos. We can have a conversation that regardless of the organization, we're going to be able to understand and make decisions around that. It's all prioritized. There's a hierarchy to decision-making, right? Life, limb, and property first, and then we worry about things later, like structures and those kinds of things. But those decisions are always made with the preservation of life first.
I'll just add in, of course, without getting in the knitting of staff, those ICS courses are online. They're free from FEMA. They're available. It's good background to take. We take all of them in the utility business, and I'm sure Excel does the same thing here. So good background if you ever have a moment.
All right, if there are no other questions, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve Resolution 24, Series 2026, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Cherry Hills Village adopting the updated 2026 Emergency Operations Plan.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, staff, very much for this very comprehensive plan. I think it's incredibly, obviously, one of the most important things we do as a city. Moving on to reports, I don't really have much to report. Things have been pretty quiet over the summer, as usual. So I'll start down here, Councilor Robinson.
Likewise, nothing to report. Thank you. But I just want to thank Emily and Jay for today. That was really great. It was well done, and the pond looks terrific. It was great to have the ducks there. It was really nice to see that.
I just have first of all, yeah, thank you for today. All the ducks in a row, I think is where you went to go with that. But, and the bridge looks terrific, really nice. I hadn't seen it yet, so. The city manager and Director Workman and I met last week with some representatives from Cherry Hills Country Club, who, their general counsel and another member who were concerned that communications with the city had gotten off track, and they wanted to get things back on track, and it was a very positive meeting. We talked a little bit about why on both sides it's good to have these open communications, and we also then spent some time talking about the Arnold Palmer Cup, which will be next July, I believe, next July, and which is where co-ed college teams, U.S. team and international teams compete. And I think this last year or this year is the first time they had the co-ed teams, so they're pretty excited about that. So it was a good meeting, and I think some good contacts were made, and I think it was positive, and hopefully we can avoid the kind of miscommunication that went on with their most recent renovation that they were doing. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Holen.
No report. To Emily and Jay, again, thanks for the pond dedication. It was terrific, and as well as the bridge. And congratulations to Kelly on the award of the Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. That was a terrific work and a terrific package that you put together. That's all I have.
Councilor Eber.
I'd like to share also my thanks to everybody who was involved in both the pond restoration as well as the bridge rebuilding. The fact that you were able to do a lot of the work in-house is a tribute to both the skill of our public works folks as well as the desire to be very conscious about expenditures, so thank you very much. The pond, I think, looks excellent. I remember it from a kid when I was growing up, and it was full of cattails and didn't have much of anything other than cattails in it. So it was great for birds, but not much else. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with a lot of this. So thank you for that. On the business side and report side, last DRCOG meeting, they reported that Bike to Work Day was a great success, had approximately a 10 to 15%. They were finalizing numbers, increase in the number of participants. They had a number of categories that you could win an award to have the highest participation rate amongst large, medium, and small and extra small companies. They said that all of the event stations were very well attended, and they thanked everybody for that. And then another thing that is that in August, I will find out the exact date, but the DRCOG will have their annual awards event, and they are looking for a number of people. I think it's like the 24th, 25th, or 26th. So I'll figure it out exactly and let everybody know. But they are looking for people to attend that if anybody is interested. They are also looking for sponsorships. I spoke a little bit with Chris about this. Ordinarily, we don't sponsor tables and things like that. But if there is a desire to do something like that, we could let them know. But just kind of a straw poll, is there any interest in doing something like that, or should we stick with our traditional, where we don't generally do that? But if anybody wants to go individually, they're welcome to attend. We'll stay that way? Okay,
Yeah, I think,
that's fine.
okay.
And then the other thing that came out of it is that DRCOG continues to work on all of their housing programs and is now working to set up regional and what they call sub-regional groups to try and work together on figuring out how to get plans that work within regions and in sub-regions where entities work together that kind of transcend city municipal district lines in an idea to meet the housing goals for a particular area. So a lot of kind of what we were talking about before, that we'd be willing to partner with other people, but may not necessarily impact here. But it was an idea to try and move forward, and it's not as far as long as they would like it to be, but they're trying to form regions and sub-regions that would then have periodic get-togethers to talk with each other about what the goals are. I mean, one municipality might really want to have some housing and one might not. One might want to say, we don't have money to do something, but others might say we have some money but don't have land. An example of some of this cooperation was that last week, the facility that we've talked about in the past that's the former financial entities property just on the other side of I-25, just south of Quincy, that was being converted to lower income housing. Centennial, for instance, didn't have, or Centennial somehow had some finance bonds that they were able to contribute to the project. And the project is now finished and was dedicated, and anybody who would ever like to take a look at the project is welcome to set it up, and we can do that. It appears to look like it's a pretty nice project. I know we objected to it on a number of regions, but it's here now, and now the proof will be in kind of how it gets used. But it was used as an example of some of the regional and sub-regional cooperation that they are now looking for. I did vote to advance the discussions because nothing was set in stone at this point. It made no commitments or anything like that to participation or to provide certain numbers of housing units. So that remains to be seen. And Chris, I think you have probably some other detail on it too.
Yeah, and Councilman Eber, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that that effort by Dr. Cog is not in response to any of the requirements from the state legislature. They are obviously attempting to get at the same goals,
Yeah.
but that this is not, I guess I would call a coercive effort by Dr. Cog. This is an initiative by Dr. Cog to attempt to get partnerships put together.
Absolutely.
think
that's-
Absolutely.
What
That-
they would have preferred, right? I mean, I think,
Yes.
yes.
So I guess I support Councilman Eber's vote to continue it forward. I do think in the right circumstance, and it may have to be just right, there might be an opportunity for us to participate in some of these efforts. We'll obviously have to see where this goes, but I do think that there is promise. You know, when we've talked about this issue in the past, we've said consistently we're not against affordable housing necessarily, right? It's not an anti-affordable housing. It's just talking about our community vision. This would be the kinds of things that we talked about as a way for us to potentially partner.
Yeah, I think specifically as it relates to that property on Monaco, municipalities are allotted these bonds. We are not big enough to receive an allotment. But if you remember, one of our reasons for objecting was really a notice objection. No one had provided any notice. And in the application, you know, they said they had reached out to the neighboring communities when in fact they had only reached out to a few select neighboring communities, in particular ones who had those bonds. I'm not as familiar with them because we don't get them. But it's almost like a cap and trade tax credit type thing where if you don't have a project in your community that's eligible for these bonds, you can allocate them. And Inglewood, I think, also contributed. And I remember the council discussion at Inglewood was, you know, their council members almost begrudgingly supported it because they really wished that they had a project in their own community that they could use these, you know, bonds to support. But in absence of that, so I'm very supportive of this concept of a regional, sub-regional approach. And I think moving forward, Cherry Hills Village should participate. I don't know to what degree, we are just so small.
Yeah, I don't think that, I think that is the major emphasis, but if I understand right from Dr. Call, because I did read through the packet after we talked, I do think that they are attempting to create other initiatives beyond that one.
Yes.
And I think those are the opportunities that we may have to be able to participate in the future. I'm very light on what those would be, because I think they're also very light on what those would be at this point. But I'm encouraged by the positive, collaborative approach that Dr. Cog has chosen to take. I think they've been very supportive of the pressures that some of those requirements have put on local jurisdictions for the organization, I should say. Individual board members will vary, but the staff have understood the hard spot that some of the legislation has put us in. So,
Well, and best case scenario, if this sort of approach proves fruitful, maybe, just maybe, there's a possibility to go back and say, look, this approach didn't work. This one is much more effective. But so anyway, I do think we should try to be a part of the solution to the extent that we can.
And then I'll close by saying that the RTD report was not presented that night because the person was not there, but we may hear a little bit from others about, I guess RTD just had their meeting and suggested and recommended a number of cuts, and I continue to advocate that we should be working on getting, if they're looking for fair savings, there is no reason for them to be providing half-hour service to the 40 as it comes across Hampton. And while I know it's based on stuff that is historical and in laws that were referring to charts and things of a prior era, I do think that there is plenty of opportunity for us to continue discussions with RTD, because it really makes little economic sense. I've spent some time watching the bus stops on Hampton in the middle of the day as I go and run my errands, and I've never seen more than 3 people there during a day. I mean, it is hard for me to imagine that RTD, in a cost-cutting move, would not move away from every half-hour service on these lines on Hampton.
They'd keep that and cut the 16th Street Mall shuttle. But, yeah, agreed. All right, Councilor Heller.
First, apologies for not making the dedication this evening, and a thank you to code enforcement and the police department. I've noticed a bicycle cop and code enforcement out on the canal, so I've got a chance to see the pond and the bridge, and enjoyed them both. So thanks for the enforcement. I think it really makes a difference. Just one item, there was no Centennial Roundtable, Noise Roundtable meeting, but there is they alerted us to a rulemaking, going from memory, but I think it closes in the Federal Register on August 17th. And supersonic commercial aviation is coming back. There's actually some connection to Centennial Airport with Boom Technologies. And so the rulemaking is about where sonic booms are allowed and where they're to be avoided. So the airport will comment, and if it comes out as proposed, it'll only be over non-populated areas, but something to watch so that hopefully there aren't comments that say that's the wrong way to go in the rulemaking. But nonetheless, if anybody has any interest, and once I see the airport's comments, I'm happy to share those.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to staff.
I'm actually going to go first today instead of waiting to back clean up. I want to echo Mayor Pro Tem Holland's comments regarding the GFOA budget awards that we got. Huge kudos to Kelly. I also think that we should also thank Kelly and Mayor Pro Tem Holland, the finance liaison, because we also got special recognition for long-range planning in the award. And we all know where that very first long-range financial forecast came from. They may be in the room right now. I don't know. But I also think that we've got a good working team looking at this. We'll be talking about some of the impacts of this long-range financial forecast in an upcoming council meeting as a follow-up to our retreat discussion about taxes. So it's easy to just say, oh, that's great, good job. It speaks to a lot of the good hard work that we're going to see the fruit of, and that some of our residents will see the fruit of here shortly. So congratulations on that. And then also another follow-up on the Country Club meeting. I also thought that was a very positive meeting. I think they understood the benefits of earlier communication. It's sort of like the old vote early and vote often kind of thing. We want to communicate early and communicate often. And I think they get why that's important. And so I call that a positive. So that was a good thing.
I'm sorry, can you update us on the light at Bellevue, the meetings with CDOT on that?
Yes, we are progressing on that. There was some initial meeting about a whole range of options. We are going to be meeting on the 31st, August 31st, if I'm not mistaken, regarding a shortened list of options and evaluating that shortened list. Jay and I have talked. We fully expect once we get the list, we will set up some individual meetings with you to go over that specifically. But through August 31st, we will have some time to schedule those. Is that the right date?
I think so.
I think it's the 31st,
Calendar open.
but that's the plan of attack.
Follow-up question, is there any additional update on conversations with Crown Castle or the cell phone tower?
Yeah, we have if you recall, we've contracted out additional help from Andrew and our consultant to try and translate the information they gave us since it was so confusing. We have not received the results of that. Additionally, all right, now I gotta kind of be a little. Additionally, we have some Crown Castle conversations coming up. It may be nothing. It may be just procedural, but it may. There's some. We're confused by what they're communicating to us, so we want to understand what it is, and that may result in some additional information. It may be nothing. Stay tuned on that. I think that's occurring. That's occurring Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that report from our consultant, we hope to have on the 25th of this month. So we will get that out to all of you because
We may have they may need to revise it.
Yeah.
So it may not go out on the 25th.
right away.
But
But we've asked them to put it in layman's terms so we can all understand. Here's the actual improvements, and so we'll make sure it's where it's supposed to be. So you all have the information to make decisions, and not just guessing, looking at things that we don't understand.
Yeah, that'll be really important.
All right, thank you.
Real quick update. As you recall, we budgeted to have the sanitation district look at Cherry Ridge. We've begun discussions with the district. We gave them all of our film and camera of that. They had their consultant look at it. That's all back. So we started talking. It looks like to bring that system up to their standards is going to be somewhere around $500,000, which I thought was about the number I had in mind. We've been working slowly, but we know we still have a lot to do.
real quick on that, Jay, just as a reminder, if we are successful at that, we're still on track where they would then take that portion over, which is how many units?
That's almost 70, so almost half of the houses that we service. So there's a little more work to be done. We are going to have our consultant do a review of, there's 43 manholes in that district. We're going to get those reviewed, get those to the district. Our attorney and the district attorney, a little bit down the road, will talk about the dissolution and inclusion process. And we will we'll work with the district to see what kind of fund do they want for, a maintenance fund, knowing that the system's brand new. And so it was very good talks today with them. They're open to the process. And they're willing to talk, unlike last time when the terms were not very good. And
Not the meeting with you, Mayor, not that last time, the time before that.
no,
Yes.
different board members on the sanitation district at the time. So we
Very
will
good
keep
meeting.
you up on that. And so we will have to talk about funding that, maybe out of the general fund if council wants to move this forward, so we don't deplete the water and sewer fund completely and still have to manage 2 other districts. So when we have more information, we hope we'll have that before this budget cycle, so we can hopefully get this all put together. And, you know, it's not going slow, it's just a slow process, but we would hope to be able to have maybe the entire thing ready to be turned over by the end of next year. So we'll continue to update council on that.
Okay, thank you.
Got it. I just wanted to also echo thanks to staff and council for all of your help in the 2026 budget. It was definitely recognized by the GFOA, as well as our special recognition for the long-range financial plan, which only 4 other entities in Colorado received. So definitely very exciting. And I very much look forward to council and staff participation and collaboration for the 2027 budget, which has just kicked off. So thank you.
Which is right now. Thank you. Chief?
Just 2 community engagement opportunities. One is National Night Out on August 4th, 4:30 to 7:30 here in John Meade Park. And the second, as you may have seen, we are running a second Citizens Police Academy this year. That one begins August 27th. The idea is not to go to 2 a year, it's just to switch the time of the year. What we have found over the last 3 years is that the spring is really busy for a lot of people in this community. And so in an effort to try to enhance our attendance at those classes, just trying a fall class, we'll see how it goes. So far, so good in terms of registrations, and we're about 2/3 of the way full just this week alone. So August 27th, for those that might be interested in attending that.
And Chief, I had one request for the report that you put together for us. Specifically, the last page where it talks about traffic incidents and it talks about the numbers of injury accidents. And given the discussions that we have, have had and that have, the issues that have arisen, I don't know, I don't want to create tons of additional work, but I would be very interested to understand where those injury accidents are occurring and have some kind of level of severity, understanding of the level of severity. There were 10 year to date, so maybe even just listing them all when there is one. It occurred at this location, and these were the nature of the injuries, take it to the hospital or not. I just think that it would be very helpful for us to understand if these things are happening in the same places over and over. Is it really just happening all over? And, that would be helpful, I think, for me moving forward. If it's not, again, taking somebody hours and hours of work to compile, so.
Again, more officially. We can absolutely do that. It won't take hours and hours. So let me work on that, and then I'm going to give you some nuance to how you read that, because the way that the state crash form looks is there's simply just a checkbox that says injury.
Okay.
And that can be, oh, my neck hurts a little bit, or I have
Right.
back pain, all the way up to a different category, which is serious bodily injury, and that's permanent disability, permanent disfigurement, or like the breaking of a bone or scars, marks, those kinds of things. So the injury alone is a wide spectrum, and then it gets more critical around serious bodily injury, and then fatality is the next category. Anecdotally, I can tell you 90% of those have occurred on Hamden and Bellevue.
Okay.
Primarily Hamden. So be no problem at all. What I will give you is a little description, and then maybe something more depictive in terms of a heat map to show frequency and where that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's more important. So in light of that just explanation about the injury, maybe And that's very, almost very subjective. For me, I'm really curious about is whether there are hot spots, that where we're having these injury accidents. And what brought it to mind, there's a recent story about City of Aurora really increasing their enforcement at the 225 Parker interchange, and all the efforts they've undergone there because of the number of crashes they've had in that intersection. And so I'm curious as to whether, is Bellevue and Franklin one of those spots for us? I mean, you anecdotally just said it's actually more on Hamden, so I would just be interested to see, what the trends are with that information.
I'm happy to share that. If it puts your mind at ease at all, the 3-year analysis for Bellevue and Franklin had 3 accidents in 3 years.
I mean, I know, but like is University, are 9 of the 10 at University and Quincy right here?
It's a great question.
Right. So
I'm happy to do that.
And then following up on that same idea, it's a little bit of an overlap with the court report that we received, but when Q2 2026 in the court report, which was page 80 of our packet, and they talk about the different violations, and there was 1 violation for 2-point speeding, 43 for a 4-point, and then 64 for a 6-point speeding, which is 20 to 39 miles over. What my question was is, are we able to categorize where 6-point violations are going on and try and focus some resources there? Because there might not be a correlation between the speed and the accident rate, but if there is, maybe we should be doing something consistent with that. And then if you look a little further down, it was the same thing for Q2 of 2025. There were 64 no 2-point, 64 4-point, and 56 6-point. We're lucky that there were no 12 points, but again, whether or not they can be correlated to hot spots that we should be spending some time on. And then secondly, the idea there is, we've talked a lot about whether or not speeds are up in the village, and we generally find that when we run our tests and our 85th percentile, that generally we don't have a speeding problem, but clearly when people are speeding, they appear to be speeding mightily. And maybe we should be a little more willing to even if it looks like it is not a speeding place, we should still might want to spend some resources there. I don't know, thoughts?
Yeah, my first response is that's already happening sort of in the inverse. So the speed enforcement, the traffic enforcement is occurring. Those resources are directed to where the crashes are, not the opposite, right? Not the crashes determine where we're going to go do speed, but the speed determines where we're going to have crashes. So we look at crash data and then move our traffic enforcement resources to those areas to try to mitigate the frequency of crashes, some of which are, in fact, contributed by speed. Not the majority of crashes. The majority of crashes are, in our city anywhere, distracted driving. But we do have speed that occurs, for sure. And those numbers that you see, we are now running back to fully staffed with 2 full-time traffic enforcement officers, plus patrols picked up a lot of that as well, because their crashes are trending in the wrong direction. So when that happens, then we get a little more strategic on traffic enforcement. So that's occurring. And let me think about how I can track where the speeding violations are occurring. The current system that we have now, which as you know is leaving in the next week or two, doesn't do that for us, but this new system with a pretty sophisticated back end might. So let me check into that and see if I can get some data there.
I mean, I think particularly, one would assume that most of those 6-point tickets are on the state highways. I mean, that would be my guess. But if there are streets like Quincy or Dahlia or Franklin, or where somebody's doing 25 miles an hour over the speed limit, like even one or two of those is pretty concerning. So,
Yeah.
great, thank you. All right, moving on, Director Workman.
No report this evening.
City Clerk.
Just wanted to check on attendance for the next two meetings, August 4th and August 18th. I believe August 4th, both Susan and Doug are out of town and could call in if needed, but just wanted to make sure we have a quorum with the others that are here tonight for August 4th.
Looks like it. Oh, wait.
Yes, just a warning on the 18th, and I'm flying in that afternoon, so assuming flights are on time, I'll be here.
Okay, so the 18th, I have Rob out of town and Karen out of town. Karen said she could call in if needed on the 18th, but Dave, you'll be back for the meeting? Assuming
All goes as planned.
Okay, so we have quorum, so thank you.
Okay.
I have no reports this evening.
Sorry, Rob, did you have something? Okay.
Just real quick, I was going to fill in that Wednesday, August 26th is the Dr. Cog meeting at celebration at 5:30 at the Sewell Ballroom. If anybody's interested, just see me.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, if that's it for everyone, we have an executive session on the schedule.
I move to go into executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes, Section 24-6-4024B, for the purpose of receiving legal advice from the city attorney regarding the operation of the Federal Fair Housing Act in concert with the Cherry Hills Village Municipal Code and applying the city's floodplain regulations. I further move to adjourn the city council meeting at the conclusion of the executive session.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Heller?
Yes.
Counselor Aber?
Aye.
Counselor Holen?
Aye.
Counselor McGuire?
Aye.
Counselor Robinson?
Yes.
That, did you say I further move? Yes, okay, sorry. Okay, then we will move to executive session and then adjourn thereafter.